have known you were gone, I would have snuck away in the luggage.
It's amazing what Zoom can do.
Unfortunately, it can't actually transport us there. That's the only thing the technology needs to improve upon.
Ready?
Good point.
Good evening, everyone. On a beautiful, beautiful May 12th evening, I'm going to call this meeting to order promptly at 4:01 p.m. Ms. Wheelwright, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Alternate member Trina Fregoso. Alternate member Cassandra Samuel.
Present.
BUSD student Angelina Segovia. Member Carl Vince.
Here.
Member Betty Rader.
Present.
Member Rob Moran.
Present.
Chairman Von Lawson.
Present.
Member Alan Copeland asked to be excused this evening. Member David Getka.
Here.
Member Eben Brown. Member Richard Beneke. Member Monir Ahmed.
Yeah, Nicole.
Development Manager Kyle Warzinski.
I'm here.
And City Manager Todd Parton is absent this evening as far as I know. Councilmember David Fenn. And Councilmember Ray Santos.
Here.
At this time, are there any actions or any requests for excused absences that have not been given to me by Ms. Wheelwright? All right, then we will move forward. I am going to call on the likes of our council member Santos to lead us in the Pledge of
Oh,
Allegiance. If you would,
sure.
sir.
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you, sir. Okay, put your hand, your right hand on your left heart and say, start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America.
And
And to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one
under God,
under
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice.
Thank you, council member.
Thank you so much.
At this time, we'll call for any conflict of interest disclosures. Any conflict of interest disclosures? Any conflict of interest disclosure? Hearing none, then we'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments at this time, Ms. Wheelwright, that have come before this body?
I have no written comments. Heather, do we have anyone on the line?
No, we do not.
All right, hearing no public comments, let's see, do we have any requests to speak of any type? Hearing no requests to speak, at this time, we'll move to our action items, our public hearing request. And the first item, of course, is our approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion regarding the minutes if you've had a chance to read them.
I mean, you motion
approve
to,
the minutes.
Say that again, who is that, please? I'll entertain a motion. I heard one from Council Member Santos. Did I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Getka. It's been moved and properly second that we would approve the minutes. All those in favor, I'm going to ask that Ms. Wheelwright will call the roll, please.
Member Vince.
yes.
Member Rader.
Yes.
Member Moran. Oh, I think you're muted, Mr. Moran.
My apologies, yes.
It's okay. Thank you. Chairman Lawson.
Yes.
Member Getka.
Yes.
Member Beneke.
Yes.
Member Ahmed.
Yeah.
And Kyle Warzinski.
Yes.
And Councilmember Santos.
Aye.
Thank you.
At this time, we will move forward with our updates of projects from our city staff. Mr. Warsinski, we will defer to you.
Thank you, Chairman Lawson, members of the Economic Development Committee. Before you tonight, I'm going to go through a couple
major projects that you've heard in the past, and then I'm also going to shift gears to maybe not something that's a project, but may be of interest to you as the Economic Development Committee, and that is our fourth quarter sales tax report that we received earlier this morning. So from the project's perspective, we're still working on the big ticket infrastructure within the city. Most of it relates to traffic control as well as traffic movements. I want to say the three prominent projects that we're talking about is the redesign or reconfiguration of the Highland Springs Interstate 10 interchange. And I believe that the Public Works Department is going to be presenting on a couple of the different viable options at the very next city council meeting. Or if that gets hung up for another reason, for one reason or another, it should be at a future meeting. But I believe it might be at the next one. If not, it'll be at probably the June meeting. The other projects that are significant that we're continuing to work on are the extension of 2nd Street all the way over to Pennsylvania to create a new intersection, and the widening of Pennsylvania Avenue from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And then we're also complete with prelim design on the Pennsylvania grade separation. We are currently seeking funding for complete engineering and design and environmental clearance for the grade separation at Pennsylvania under the railroad. And we're also looking for additional funding for the Potrero Interchange Phase 2, which are the ramps to go along with the bridge structure that was completed a couple of years or so ago. A couple of the funding opportunities that we're currently going after is the Congress in Washington, D.C. has a couple different funding possibilities for the city through our congressman's office. Rob's probably familiar with this from the county, but Congress is contemplating the return of earmarks or federal appropriations for certain infrastructure projects. One of them are for smaller community projects, and those are done through the federal budget, which goes from October 1 all the way to the end of September. It's always hard for me to remember that because that budget cycle or fiscal year doesn't match anything else on this planet. So that is something that we're interested in. We have submitted projects for that funding possibility. And then the other funding possibility for earmarks or appropriations from Congress is being included in the president's American Jobs Plan. So you may have heard of the rescue plan, obviously, that was approved, and different types of funding are going out to cities, to counties, to states, as well as a slew of other funding streams going to business projects and so forth. Now, the American Jobs Plan is heavily slanted towards infrastructure improvements in order to create new projects, finish projects that have been on hold for a while, ultimately to create jobs throughout the nation. So the city has submitted, city council authorized staff to submit a proposal to Congress for, I want to say 18.5 million for the ramps at Potrero Interchange in order to stimulate that area, increase the traffic patterns within that area, and ultimately open up roughly 1,500, 2,000 acres for future economic development, which would be housing, job creation, businesses, and commercial alike. So that's going to conclude my report on projects. And as I alluded to, we did receive our sales tax numbers for fourth quarter of 2020 earlier this morning, and I just wanted to provide you a quick snippet of those. So fourth quarter of 2020 represents the taxable sales that accrued through October to December. So those are the 3 months we talk about for that quarter. The city of Beaumont itself, the total sales tax receipts that we received for that quarter was $1,767,000. It represents a 4.3 increase from fourth quarter of 2019. And that's on the adjusted basis. So from a cash basis, sales were up 7%. When you factor out aberrations or missing payments or double payments, as you will, it brings that number down to 4.3. 4.3 to me is pretty decent. To people that don't look at sales tax numbers all the time, I'll have to put that in context for you. So the county, and Rob probably knows this, the county itself was up 4.5% for the same quarter, year to year. The state as a whole was negative 2%. So you can see the discrepancy in terms of the state versus the county versus the city. We're pretty much on par with what the county is doing. Very excited about that, and I'll go into some of those reasons on why. So the main reason that I feel, and of course I'm not a sales tax expert, nor do I pretend to be, or an economist either, but my thought process, my estimation on why the county and why the city of Beaumont may be a little bit higher than other areas in the state or the state as a whole is due to the online shopping, right? So what happened during the pandemic last year? We had storefronts closed, we had restaurants closed, and many of us looked online to purchase goods that we needed, and they were available, so we did that. So that factors in. So there's increased buying online. Those go to the county pool, in our case, Riverside County Pool. The pool is representative of all of the sales tax dollars that come from a California-based area or out-of-state vendor that ships to somewhere in Riverside County. So those go to the pool, and then they're distributed based on different formulas and so forth. We don't need to get into that, into how much each city receives from that pool. So when online shopping occurs at a high percentage, we see the county pool going up. Conversely, if online shopping slows or goes down, then we see the county pool go down. Another contributing factor to why the numbers on the pool keep increasing was due to the Wayfair court decision. And if you used to shop online 10 years ago, you'll know what I'm talking about. But 10 years ago, when we were buying things online, why did we do that, right? The price was nearly the same, but we didn't pay sales tax, did we? You'd pay shipping, but none of the items were taxed. The Wayfair decision, as a court ruled, requires all out-of-state vendors that ship to California to charge sales tax and then remit it. So we've seen a good increase in that county pool or the online shopping sales tax numbers that have been created, because now out-of-state vendors, big and small, are now charging sales tax and they're sending it to the state of California. So twofold, I think that decision where everyone's collecting it and sending it, plus the fact that we have fulfillment centers in Riverside County. So what does that mean? If we have a fulfillment center, like I can't use Amazon because they're a unique animal in terms of how they report sales tax, but say the large Wayfair facility in the city of Paris, right? So if we buy something from that Wayfair website and it ships to us at our houses in California from that location in Paris, our sales tax goes to the city of Paris. That's how it works. It's called point of sale, and that's how sales tax are structured in the state of California. So Paris is in Riverside County, so you expect those dollars to go up as well. So we definitely see that from a county perspective. Those are my estimates, or at least my crazy ideas on why the city of Beaumont as well as the county fares a little bit better than the remainder of the state. In terms of what we saw during the quarter, general consumer goods was up slightly, I think 1 to 2%. The county pools was up significantly. Building and construction materials up pretty high. Restaurants and hotels, what was that percentage for restaurants and hotels? 38%. Oh no, that's just quick service. So quick service is up 38%. Fast casual up 5.5%. Casual dining, which you'll typically think of a sit-down restaurant, that's your casual dining, was down 32%. So overall, restaurants were up. And the reason restaurants were up when other restaurants were closed and we saw 32% down in casual dining is because we had a couple new restaurants open. So we compare 2019 to 2020. In 2019, we did not have an In-N-Out Burger, a Raising Cane's, or a Jersey Mike's. So those come online. They're churning through burgers or chicken fingers, if you will, and those sales tax dollars come to the city. So we get pretty excited about that when, at least I do, when we start seeing those dollars come in and we realize that people actually like the different businesses that we're trying to attract to the city. Autos and transportation were up because of the RV and trailer dealers. As you know, we don't have any automotive dealerships within the city, but we do have a decent amount of RV and trailers. And what did people do last year when they couldn't go on a plane or on vacation or on a cruise? They all bought an RV, right? So we saw that number increase. Standard growth on food and fuel and service stations, we saw a decline. And I think that for the fourth quarter of 2020, we still had that stay-at-home order, the second stay-at-home order, and volumes were down and prices were down. So what that does is it contributes to less fuel being sold at a lower price, which means our sales tax numbers come in less than the year prior. And I think that is it. Oh, the one thing I did want to mention. So I said that the general consumer goods was only 1 to 2%, right? Doesn't seem that great, doesn't seem too bad. But if you benchmark our 1 or 2% positive growth in general consumer goods with other cities throughout the state that were looking at multi-digit, so double-digit declines in their general consumer goods, then our 1% or 2% growth is pretty dang good, right? If we're comparing with someone that was down 10% or more. So that just kind of puts it in perspective where we're at, the strength of our trade area that we're marketing based on the information you guys were presented at the last meeting. And that really concludes my report, Committee Chair, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Warsinski. Are there any questions or observations for Mr. Warsinski or his staff? Any questions?
Kyle, is this wasn't projected, obviously, if it was an increase. So in terms of the budget that was put together, this is a surplus? Basically, you're saying this is a surplus to the city? Surplus revenue?
That's a good question, Member Beneke. So we did a significant amount of financial forecasting during the onset of COVID last year, right? That predicated the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget that we're currently in. This quarter falls within that budget. We expected declines throughout the city on multiple industry groups and so forth. So obviously this is going to be, these numbers are going to come in higher than our budget numbers for revenue. So we should see a surplus at the end of the year. One of the reasons I think that we were a little bit light in terms of our revenue projections was we didn't factor in certain businesses doing far better in the pandemic. We kind of went across and we said, these ones are pretty risky, so they're going to decline by a certain percent. And then these ones are pretty strong, so they'll be okay, but they're also going to decline by a certain percent. What we didn't expect was everyone to go buy everything from Stater Brothers, including all the toilet paper and canned food. So those types of industries, we saw an uptick for whatever reason, and we didn't necessarily expect that to happen. And it also has to do with us never experiencing this type of global pandemic in the past. So we really had no baseline to go off of. So that's definitely some of it. And then Icon Health and Fitness over there off of 4th Street, as you know, sells Nordic Track and Proform and Gold's Gym. They have done more sales this last year than I don't know when to benchmark it, but significant increase in terms of their sales numbers. And that's because all the gyms were closed. People still wanted to work out, so they ended up buying all of the fitness equipment that this company had for sale. So we didn't expect huge increases in certain industry groups either.
Any additional questions or observations for Mr. Warsinski or his staff, please?
I have a question for
Member
Kyle. Out of all the different categories, do we have it broken down in some kind of a pie chart as to percent of, say, consumer goods versus online sales revenue versus fast food and restaurants and all that? Do we have it in a pie chart format or something like that?
Yes, sir, we do. And what I can do is I can share the exhibit that I'm looking at because it has been filtered out for the confidential data has been removed. So it does have that pie chart. So consumer goods is about 25%. The pool itself, that county pool I spoke of, 19%, fuel 10%, autos and transportations 8%, restaurants 11, building materials 15. I'll go ahead and send that to everyone. What it does show me, since I just rattled off all the numbers, is fairly equal growth in fairly equal revenue coming in. We do not rely on one industry within the city of Beaumont. We saw that during the Great Recession in 2008 and 2009 because it's a blessing and a curse, right? We'd love to have auto dealerships that generate a ton of money. But when no one's buying cars and we're expecting that revenue to come in, then that isn't so hot on our budget. What we have is a very robust income stream, very diverse. So it's helpful. I know that some cities rely heavily on the county pool. Sometimes in excess of 50% of their sales tax revenue comes from the county pool. Ours is only 19%. That reflects a good shopping amenity within the city of Beaumont, different options for people to come into. And we continue to work towards adding to those shopping opportunities for people to go dine and buy goods and services that they may need.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question on the Amazon. What was the money we received from them?
That's a good question, and that's why I was about to say Amazon when I was using the example from that point of sale facility, and I had to shift to Wayfair, and I can explain why within the time period that I'm allotted, because I do want to provide adequate time for Christina to do her presentation. So, Carl, that was you that answered or asked that, right?
Yes.
So, Carl, Amazon, when they started business years ago, struck a deal with the state of California in which they don't pay point of sale sales tax to cities. So all of their facilities are technically owned and operated by another company, still owned by Amazon, but called something different. Amazon itself owns the website, and then these facilities are under a different arm of Amazon. What that means is that the Beaumont facility does not generate sales tax as a point of sale facility. Those sales that do go into California from items in our Beaumont facility do go to the Riverside County pool. So that's obviously one of the reasons that we wanted to see that thing here. Another main reason, because one of my tasks is creating jobs, and Amazon employs over 3,000 people at that facility. So that once again met some of those metrics and goals that City Council put forth in the EDSP, the strategic plan, was increased revenues, increased shopping and dining opportunities, increased jobs. So that pretty much hits it on that. Now, I will caveat that Amazon is currently looking at restructuring. I can't promise that's going to happen because they're not necessarily consulting me or Rob or anyone from our industry per se. But we have heard a rumor that Amazon may be restructuring into a point of sale. If that occurs, what would happen is the city would start receiving point of sale from our facility. But in that regard, the county pool will then decline as well, right? The county pool is not going to stay in each city that has a facility is going to go up. It's going to go up in one area and decline in another area. So hopefully that answers your question to the best of my ability.
This might be off track a little bit, but so is there an incentive for them to hire residents of Beaumont, or does that make sense?
It is, and I've been asked that question by a lot of different businesses or people within the area. Is there a way that the city can require them to hire local? We also get asked that same thing on construction bids, on public bids. Can we give preference to local bidders versus others throughout the state? There's nothing that we put in place or that I believe we can put in place that requires it. When I work with each business within the city that is opening, obviously I recommend that they look local. We allowed Amazon to rent our gym at City Hall for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, in which they had an ongoing job fair every single day from 8 to 3, where what that means is local people didn't have to drive to a near facility, which could have been in Redlands or Eastvale for hiring. They could simply drive down the street to City Hall that they're familiar with, fill out their application, go through the drug testing process, go through an interview all here at City Hall, and get offered the job the same exact day. So that event was highly successful, but there's really no way that we can mandate it. But what I can tell you is that I did receive I wouldn't call it a tremendous amount, but a significant amount of calls from Amazon workers that live within our area now that were previously working at one of Amazon's other facilities. And they wanted to know when it was going to open and what the process was to transfer to the Beaumont facility. So the market itself kind of helps in that, is that some of these people worked in the company and simply were able to transfer to a location of closer proximity to their own home.
Thank you, Kyle.
Can I interject something in there, Kyle, on the Amazon? And back on the November 2019, Carl is right. I mean, we opened our gymnasium, and majority of who applied in there is residents in Beaumont. And we're so proud in that, being a council person in here. And then at the same time, presently, I know some people work in there from a certain level up to the higher level lives here in Beaumont. And I do personally know them, and some are my tenants, and working with them, and they're so proud that they got the job over here instead of driving to Rancho Cucamonga, to even Orange County.
Moreno Valley.
They're now living here, and then at the same time they save a lot of time and money. At the same time, they could spend their time with the family. So that's the thing that I could share with you on that. Thank you, Kyle.
The other fun thing is for all the people that work there that don't live here yet, it's a pretty good incentive. Once they come here, they realize what Beaumont's all about, and they look at the prices of the houses. I'd venture to guess that many of them may end up moving to Banning or Beaumont in the future.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll also defer back to Mr. Warsinski to give the introduction for the downtown area plan presentation.
Thank you, committee chair, members of the committee. So at the last meeting, you guys asked me if possible to bring an update to you all at the very next meeting. You gave me a very short turnaround on the downtown plan. So I went over to the planning department and I asked super nicely if they were able to scrunch in some time for us, and they said yes. So luckily enough, they were able to get this done for us in a short turnaround. So this is Christina Taylor, the Community Development Director. You've heard from her previously, but for maybe people that don't know or weren't at that last meeting, she's in charge of the planning department, and she's going to provide the update on the downtown plan as you guys requested.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Awesome. So nice to be with you guys again. I think it was maybe before COVID since I've joined you last. So nice to see everybody here. And I appreciate the request to come and update you all about the downtown area plan. And similarly to how we presented last time, I'll give you a brief overview of the information that I have for you, and then basically take your questions. I want to make sure that we're talking about what you want to talk about and answering questions about things that are important to you guys and your role with the city. So I think I can share my screen here. Oh, I also want to let you know our planning manager, Carol Kendrick, has joined as well. So between the two of us, we should be able to get you some good information here about our downtown area plan. Let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. But I can't see my screen. That's a problem. Okay, hang on real quick. I'm glad you can see it.
You didn't memorize it?
Well, I want to make sure this is so weird. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Nicole, can you help me?
Okay, so can you not see it? Do you have two screens up?
Go to the option, click on the view option or slideshow option. This is a PowerPoint, right? Or a PDF?
It's just a PDF.
Or then go on your display participant option, and what do you say the lower right corner of your screen?
You know what? I think I have it here. I'll just
double click it,
okay.
and it will go blow up. Double click the right lower corner, small picture, it will blow up.
Okay. My problem is I like to see everybody's face while the presentation is on. So, anyway, I'll get used to it. Normally IT or Nicole, someone that's far better at this, is running this for us while we talk. So anyway, it's a good lesson for me as well. The downtown area plan is something that has been in the works for a number of years. And I think it's been talked about in different iterations over the years with the various committees and commissions and councils. But as we went through the general plan process, we decided that creating a downtown area plan as opposed to doing something like a specific plan was going to be the most appropriate way to put some tools and guidelines in place to capture the vision that council had and that planning commission and EDC and the community had for the downtown and how we can achieve that. So let's see. Am I resumed sharing? There we go. All right. So the downtown vision is focused on areas along 6th Street and Beaumont Avenue. So this is similar to the areas that were previously identified as the downtown. Beaumont Avenue south of Oak Valley Parkway to about 5th Street, just before the I-10 on-ramp, and then 6th Street from where you come into town off of the freeway, all the way through town east to Highland Springs Avenue. We've divided the area up, and I'll put a map up in just a minute. Divided the area or downtown into certain areas. But at the core of the downtown is the city center with the civic center, which is where City Hall is, and a lot of the downtown businesses. You can see some pictures there that have sort of captured the idea of what we would like to see downtown morph into in the coming years. But something that's active, that's walkable, that, you know, is attractive, that people want to come down and patronize the businesses there. Some areas that we can have for community use, such as for farmers markets or food truck nights or anything like that. And even maybe incorporate in certain areas some residential uses that would bring a permanent source of people to utilize the businesses that are downtown on a regular basis, not just people coming in, you know, periodically or on the weekends and whatnot. So here's the map of the downtown area plan. And you can see we have the Beaumont Avenue district, which is the green area running up along Beaumont Avenue. We have the downtown district, which is the area that's focused right around City Hall, from about California on the west over to Palm, maybe a little further over on the east. And then we have the extended 6th Street that goes all the way out to Highland Springs Avenue. And by the way, this information is from the general plan update, which was adopted or took effect the beginning of this year. So this information is also online if there's anyone who would like to access it later, or I can get the information to Kyle and he can provide it to you guys as well. So with the downtown districts, we have zoning, which we're required to apply zoning to properties within the city. And so we have a number of zoning districts that are somewhat different than what had previously been in the general plan and in the zoning map. So we have single-family residential, which is pretty common along both Magnolia and Orange. There are existing single-family residential homes in that area, and we wanted to make sure that those residents could, you know, maintain as a conforming use, and they can enjoy their property to the fullest extent. We have a Beaumont mixed-use zone, which is on both sides of Beaumont Avenue, and it allows for a variety of uses, both commercial and residential, retail, restaurant, some outdoor opportunities for, you know, restaurants or businesses that would like to have that component as well. And then as we move down off of Beaumont Avenue onto some of the other streets like 8th and 7th, along 8th Street, you see a good bit of residential that exists already. So you can see we tried to carry that through. So we have a mixed residential zone and a downtown residential multifamily zone that allows for those residences that are currently occupying those properties to continue to exist, but it also allows for some expansion of those residential uses. So any of the properties that are underutilized currently as residential would have the opportunity to improve those properties and maybe develop them to a greater extent, both in the single family and multi-family zones. And then as you look at the purple and red designations, we have a downtown mixed use, and then we have 6th Street mixed use, and then local commercial. So, and mixed use is basically what it sounds like. So an opportunity for a variety of businesses and residential to coexist in some capacity. And we have the local commercial zone, which is most similar to like a general commercial zone that used to apply to a lot of 6th Street especially down on the east end where we have the grocery stores and some of the other businesses like the Beaumont Do It Best and our RV manufacturers, the big tech guys, all of that stuff. So we wanted to make sure that they still could enjoy operation of their business as well in the city, as along with encouraging other businesses, to continue to seek out Beaumont as a place where they would like to locate. And then the gray areas that you see mixed in here are public facilities. So you're looking at City Hall and the police station and things like that. So within the downtown and the districts, we tried to provide some land use recommendations, and we did that a lot by utilizing pictures, because when you can put a picture, it helps sort of capture the vision and represent, what we'd like to see. But the idea ultimately that we would like to carry through is, in this first picture here, you can see that looks almost like the median or the middle of a street, where we can have some improvement that would be able to use maybe in a multi-purpose capacity of possibly, parking or something during the day so people can park once and walk and go see businesses. And that would help alleviate some of the parking requirements that are placed on businesses that operate in the downtown area, as well as, when it's off hours, utilize that space as a public gathering place. And we've tossed around ideas, like I mentioned earlier, such as farmers markets or food truck nights, but also, the community services department has mentioned being able to use an area like that for, group exercise activity or community movie nights or anything like that, where we can have a place, in the downtown area that would bring people to the businesses that are already in our downtown. Okay. So here's another example, and this just gives a cross section of the street. So I know we just had a Public Works came through and paved 6th Street in the downtown area and restriped, and it's beautiful. As we continue to look towards improvements in the downtown area, that will bring some changes to how the street functions. But you see a couple examples here of possibilities on how those streets will look, with the potential for having some parking where, again, people can park once and then walk and visit the businesses that are in town, bike lane opportunity, sidewalks, so that we have people that can walk adjacent to what ideally will be businesses that have both indoor and outdoor dining or indoor and outdoor shopping opportunities for people to engage in. These are some more cross sections as we go through moving down 6th Street, just of the opportunities, focusing on multimodal forms of transportation. So not just vehicle and not just pedestrian, but bike lanes as well. And again, providing ample parking opportunities for people to park once and walk and visit businesses instead of having to keep getting back in their car and moving along down the street. So these are some additional examples of what we could see or what we could work towards in the 6th Street corridor. So we do have opportunities, like I said, for mixed use, which could be commercial uses and residential uses existing together, whether it's in a vertical where you see buildings, multi-story buildings, or whether it's in a horizontal capacity where you have, retail on the fronting the street where people can access it easily, and then residential behind it. So we have some options there. This is a great opportunity because we have the buses that run. So if as we continue to grow, if people choose to ride the bus, they would be able to have Beaumont Transit access along 6th Street and get to where they would like to go. And again, some more Beaumont Avenue sections. So Beaumont Avenue could change a little bit, not a ton. We do have a ton of right-of-way on Beaumont Avenue. It's a very wide street, but again, a very well-maintained street, and Public Works has done an outstanding job with the paving and striping and maintaining on Beaumont Avenue. So we have also some parking recommendations. I believe I spoke with EDC a number of months ago about the parking strategy study. That the planning department received a grant from SCAG to undertake a parking strategy study for the downtown area. And what staff had realized was that a lot of the parcels in downtown were constrained from a parking standpoint, in that, you know, the lots are small and we had structures on there, but, you know, the zoning code and the uses and the parking that was required didn't necessarily match up with what the lots permitted. And, you know, you can't really easily grow a lot, right? So we focused on the downtown, and we also looked at other areas in the city. And we'll be taking a presentation to City Council about that parking strategy study, I believe at the June 1st council meeting. So I would encourage you all to tune in if you're available to take a look at the findings that came out of that. But the idea is very reflective and supported by what's in the general plan, in that, you know, the idea is we'd like to allow for people to park once and patronize the businesses, to engage in some sort of shared parking ideas where, whether it's a parking structure or median parking or street parking, where we can sort of minimize the conflict with, you know, vehicles in the street or pedestrians, and provide a parking area that lots of people and businesses can utilize. And then we have lots of other ideas in the general plan here, one of which are reduced parking standards. And again, that's something that was also discussed in the parking strategy study. And of course, that's a higher level discussion that ultimately council would get to determine whether or not it was something appropriate to do based on the information we have. But it's one of the many ideas that we have in the general plan, as well as in the parking strategy study that we'll be presenting. And then I'll spare you from going through all of these, but I did want to let you know that as part of the general plan, every chapter and every section that we have has guiding principles and goals and policies. And these were developed both by discussions and feedback and input from the community, as well as from the various committees, commissions, and council that participated in preparing this document. And so, you know, the number one guiding principle that we have is to create a vibrant downtown. And so downtowns are in a lot of ways the anchors of a community and a city. And so we as staff and at the city understand the importance of having a vibrant downtown. And the goal really is to find ways to attract businesses to come into the downtown and either utilize and improve existing structures, or, you know, take some vacant land or underutilized land and improve that, and construct, you know, structures that can be used for their businesses. So we have a number of goals and policies that support that in the land use section and the community design and all that. And you can see it's pretty comprehensive here with the number of pages we have of goals and policies to support development in the downtown. So with that, like I said, I want to make sure I answer questions you have and talk about things that are important to you guys. So I'll open it up for Carol and I to take any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from the membership? Let me say, outstanding job, Ms. Taylor. That was very informative. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Ms. Taylor while she's here with this presentation?
Is your mic muted?
I'm sorry. I am so sorry. You couldn't hear me. I just wanted to say outstanding job, Ms. Taylor. Outstanding. Are there any questions or comments from the committee members for Ms. Taylor, please?
I just have one comment. I can't stress enough how much that parking is going to be a big issue.
Big issue in we don't have enough, or big issue in we need to fix?
The big issue is that it's gonna have to have enough parking, or that's gonna discourage people if there's not enough parking.
Agreed. Needs to be enough parking in the right places.
Correct.
Yep.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
Excellent presentation, by the way. A lot of what you said, I'm very familiar with because it's been around for a long time. It's been updated periodically, but it's still been around a long time. And it's all good stuff. It's a good framework. It's a good structure. It's a good starting point. But I think a lot more needs to be done in terms of looking at consolidation of what it would take to bring a developer into this community to develop a downtown area. Right now, you're doing infill projects, especially along Beaumont Avenue, tearing down some old houses, putting some dental offices up, and some, repair window glass places. Downtown itself, what the problem is with the downtown, you have these small lots, and to do anything, you really need land. You need to amass enough land to make it worthwhile for somebody to come in and invest hundreds of millions of dollars, to be honest with you.
Yep.
To redo a downtown area that has been let go for a long time. So I don't know if there's been any thinking of how that might happen, or if you're even in the position to make it happen. I'm not sure where the willpower is within the city structure to make something like that happen. But
Right.
The bottom line is infill will not get you to where you want to go in the long term.
You're absolutely correct. And I'll speak a little bit to that. As we were going through development of the downtown area plan and getting ready to present to council, for adoption and whatnot, these are things we think about. So, we didn't want it to just be a theoretical plan that meets what the state is requiring us to do, right? We actually do want to see some of this happen. And so what staff has been doing on the back end is Carol and I both spend a pretty significant amount of our time looking at programs and public-private partnership opportunities that we might be able to engage in to work on things that can help be a spark for the downtown, right? Because, once we get a couple, one or two, like you're talking about, consolidated projects or areas going, then, that sparks interest, and people are like, oh, hey, there's activity down there. Let's go down there. We want to be a part of that. So we've also worked with the city manager's office, and I know the city manager has been doing some work as well. And it's sort of a twofold. We've got discussions on, the infrastructure component of things, because that tends to be where a lot of the heavy cost lies, especially if you're talking about scraping a building and then having to put in, a new building and upgrade all of the, the underground stuff, the pipes and things like that have to now meet current standards, or might have to change sizing or responsiveness for a different type of use. So there's a lot of cost in that. And then the other part is a lot of the work that Kyle is doing with the consultants and our retail partners that are looking at where our gaps are and what the opportunities are, so that we can reach out to businesses or people in the different industries where we see the opportunity for growth, to find out what they need and what would make it attractive for them to come to the city, and see what we can do on that end from a partnership standpoint or a processing standpoint or something like that, to help facilitate, getting that first one in, and then maybe moving on. There's another one that comes in after the first one's been successful, and ideally get that ripple effect where we can continue to, to move through downtown, seeing positive change like that happen. So, it will be a lengthy process. Another thing that I've been working on, which this is several years out, just on the timing on how things work, there is a lot of CDBG funding that's available for that particular area in town. It will require the city to adjust how we currently engage in CDB funding with the county. That's a different discussion to be had on another day, but I'm already thinking ahead 2 or 3 years down the road to how we might be able to capitalize on using some of that funding to put it into our downtown as well. So we are working on it, and I'll welcome these comments and feedback and all of that. And Kyle has my email, or I'm on the city's website. Anytime you have ideas or comments or questions along this line, please feel free to send it to me, because I'm always looking for ideas and comments and thoughts that might spark things for me to look at to help out in the downtown area.
I appreciate that, and your idea about synergy is critical and very important. And I think, it's always the first step that is the biggest step. But once you make that first big step, then a lot can fall in place behind that. So I'm glad to hear that you're thinking outside the box a little bit, and you're thinking futuristically, because I think there's a lot of potential for that downtown area to be a very profitable center, a hub of activity for this community. So anyway, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Taylor, to you and your staff for the fine work, and thank you, Mr. Warsinski, for the report. Are there any other comments or questions before we move on to reports? Hearing none, then are there?
Yes,
any...
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Oh, yes.
A little
Oh, I'm
late
so
on my-
sorry.
on my button.
Councilmember Finn, please.
Yes, thank you. Christina, thanks for the presentation. I do have a question.
Sir.
When it comes to kind of just putting the cart in front of a horse, or the horse in front of the cart, does the city have an idea or just a basic plan on what they could take to council on? Does the council work on approving maybe widening the street and putting in parking first and then hopes the business come in? Or do we wait for a couple of businesses to come in first and then see some progress and then try to do it from there? My thought is, if the city didn't do anything, we might be getting businesses coming in on the east end closer to Highland Springs where there's vacant land. And then the other question would be, with that, is there kind of a ground zero of where the city to start, like a Beaumont Avenue and 6th Street intersection, and then spread out from there? So is there a game plan related to that?
So I think we're working on that right now. I've had discussions with the city manager's office specific to the parking issue in downtown. And I know we're working to actively address that issue. And I think that's something that we can do before anything else happens. I think it will show the city's investment in the downtown area and show that we're looking to make sure we have ample parking available in a sort of central location that would allow people to, again, park and walk and patronize the businesses. I think the way downtown is set up, I think there's going to be a natural attraction to certain types of businesses that will want to go further east. And then there are other types of businesses that will want to locate in the more core of the downtown, if that makes sense. So when you look at what's down on the east end, and you look at, like, we have Stater Brothers, and we've got Do It Best, and we've got the bank, and we've got some other, businesses down on that end. Those lots tend to be a little bit larger, and I think lend themselves to a larger scale of retail development, whether it's a multi-tenant center or whether it's one large retailer that might be interested in coming in to a location like that. The East End is pretty attractive because you have the Highland Springs exit, you have Sundance to the north, you have some multi-family housing, you have the bus line that runs through there. So it is a good location for a larger retail type establishment to come in, or someone who wants to come in and take down 15 or 20 acres and, put in some larger scale retail. There are some infrastructure issues down there, specifically in the neighborhood of the Applebee's restaurant and whatnot, pertaining to some of the existing sewer and water lines and whatnot. So there are some hurdles that will have to be addressed. And I think there will be an opportunity there for the city to assist with that in some capacity, whether it's financially, that's not my determination, although there are grant opportunities out there for assistance with infrastructure in with some developments, but maybe in facilitating or helping in some other way. I think the opportunity will be there. In the core of the downtown, I think those lots are much smaller, and I think, from a staff standpoint, we try and encourage people to consolidate the lots in that area. So if you own a lot and you can take down the adjacent lot, we're like, hey, let's do that, and we'll work with you on how to get your business going in there to make it function and do what you want it to do. I think since the pandemic, it's also changed our focus and helped reframe for what I think will probably be an extended period of time, if not a permanent period of time, for allowing businesses to set up to have the opportunity to operate outdoors as well as indoors. And so that's also a very prime opportunity in the downtown area. As far as the cart before the horse, or which is first, I think there's so much to be done downtown. It almost doesn't matter which one we take on first. I think it will be seen as a positive, and it will hopefully spark some synergy like Mr. Beneke was referring to. I think addressing the parking is a good way to go. Initially, I think that will show that the city is committed to making sure that people have access to the existing businesses down there. And I think other businesses would see that as a positive, like, hey, the city supports, people being able to access our businesses and in a multitude of ways, whether it's parking a vehicle, riding a bike, or, parking and walking. Again, the infrastructure, that's something that there's going to be a lot by lot, case by case basis. But I think we have, since the general plan and this downtown area plan just took effect in January, I think as the council and as staff, we're talking about this early on. And so I think we have some time to really have a good discussion and look at what we want to do. If there's some areas that we want to focus or that council identifies that they would like staff to focus on trying to improve, I think, the plan's only been in place 4 months at this point. And it's theoretically a 20-year plan. So I think we're doing pretty good in the discussion standpoint. And I think that it's likely, from what I've heard from the city manager's office, we'll continue to have those discussions and figure out how we can really make an impact in downtown.
Christina, I had one thing to add to your fantastic response on that. So, Councilmember Fenn, one thing that dates back before this plan has been Todd and I talking to some of the downtown merchants that are in business today. And one of their main concerns is not necessarily parking within the area, but it's the speed of traffic along 6th Street. And I think to answer your question, if in a perfect world, we would allow certain businesses to come in and then we'd work with them and then put in the infrastructure improvements alongside. But I don't know how successful our attraction efforts might be if they're doing site visits. Christina and I have convinced them to acquire and combine parcels. They're out there and they see people going 65 miles an hour right in front of this parcel, which is, I'm not exaggerating on the speeds on 6th Street at some times of day. As you could see, based on the general plan, as well as the downtown plan that Christina provided you, that certain stretch of 6th Street between Beaumont Avenue and Pennsylvania has parking in the middle of the street. And what happens when you put in that type of parking, when you reduce the travel lanes down, is we're going to be significantly reducing the speed limit along 6th Street. And that does two things. It does more than two things, but predominantly two things. It's going to slow down traffic and make the businesses easier and safer to get to. And then hopefully the people that want to go 60 mile an hour on 6th Street get back on the freeway because they weren't stopping at any of those businesses in the first place. So I think that's where that type of driving needs to occur through the city. And they may not, as we start developing this downtown area, need to be driving at high rates of speed through the downtown, because that's not what 6 is intended for. And that's not the vision for it. It's to have a pedestrian safe environment where people are congregating. And I don't believe that can occur with high speed cars.
Yeah. I was trying not to be boring and talk about traffic a whole bunch because, that's, it's a part of planning, but it's more public works vein. But yeah, the whole idea behind those street cross sections that were exhibited in the general plan update were to give some options that would, like Kyle said, basically slow traffic, or we call it traffic calming, which allows people to see not just, I mean, also makes it easier for them to stop and park, but as people are going through town, it allows them to go at a speed where they can see what businesses are on the street, and it's slow enough where it can capture their attention, and they're like, oh, maybe we want to come back, and they can see that there's parking available, and all of these things work together to bring it down. So I hope that answers your question, Councilmember Fenn, between what I said and what Kyle said.
Yeah, it helps, thank you. And just whenever time I hear about, redeveloping downtown, I think of two cities. One is Redlands, down State Street, where you don't want to drive down that because there's too many people walking around.
Right.
But then I also think of Euclid Avenue in Upland.
Yep.
Nice, pretty tree-lined street, but you can kind of cruise down the road if you want to.
Yep.
And then there's bigger businesses and bigger retail down that stretch. So maybe it's a combination of the two of them, depending on where. And maybe we end up with a tighter pedestrian style in a section a little closer to Highland Springs. But it can be hard to envision trying to do a downtown Beaumont like a downtown Redlands, because Redlands is so condensed in that area, but at the same time, and something needs to happen, and I remember moving to Beaumont and drove through downtown, that it needs a facelift for one. And if we can encourage businesses to do so, and I do like the idea of the parking in the streets. I don't know how much or how beneficial like a big parking structure would be. If we did, then that would need to be right next to a very condensed walking area, and so forth. But I do like the look of maybe center parking down a median, with the tree-lined street down the middle, that sort of stuff gives a nice look. And then again, it slows the traffic down at the same time. So I appreciate the efforts that have going into it so far. And like you point out, just a few months into a multi-decade plan.
Right.
But just trying to capture the vision and having an idea of what staff is dealing with and what might be financially reasonable in doing so.
Yeah, I think I know one of the financial constraints do play a big role. It's a lot to ask businesses to come in, and especially small businesses to come in and, redo a whole building so that it looks a certain way, right? So we try and have some sensitivity to that. Although, the way downtown, obviously we have a vision now, so we would like to encourage that vision to unfold. But one of the things that is weighed heavily on me and that I'm steadily working towards is trying to find a funding source for like a facade improvement program downtown, or sign improvements downtown, or something that we can assist businesses with as they come in to help improve the exterior or the look of the business, to try and at least start bringing some cohesiveness and some physical improvement to the look of how things are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And a personal example that I saw come to fruition was Gardner's Tax Service on First Street. I sold Andy that building, and city had some requirements. They had to put in a sidewalk and so forth. They put up fencing, and now the place looks great. It's a nice looking business and so forth. They get extended parking and so forth. So I see what requirements are needed. I don't know that he complained during the process, but he has a thriving business now, and it looks great. So that's just one. Now it's not in this little corridor, but I could see I knew the before, I saw the before, and I certainly see the after, and it's a nice benefit to the city when it's all finished. So,
yeah.
But I'm good. Thank you for your responses, both Kyle and Christina.
Thank you.
Councilmember Santos.
Okay, let me add something in here, Christina, Kyle, and been in the area, and I've been on some other areas, and I think our city or the downtown itself is really we're designing it as a friendly, pedestrian friendly, and family friendly, And then probably, Christina, you're familiar with the Go Human. I think we have to go on that direction so we could get more funding from SCUG. And I know we got the funding on that back then on the some of the signs and streets on that to design that. And I think we have to jump in now on doing a Go Human. Go Human means there'll be a bike lane friendly scooters. So this will be a design for the businesses and family who lives in the area who wants to stop in our area. What's going on right now? People will come in and stop on Beaumont Avenue and 6th Street. That's it. They don't go further because there's no attractions in there. And I think if this committee could really get involved really deeply on designing and have a subcommittee doing all of these suggestion ideas and future on downtown area. I think that will be really good. On Richard, Richard, you're right. On that, on the what were we going to do? Still planning and planning. We've been here years, man. Over decades. So we've seen that, and now we're involved in here. And then, Carl, you're right. On the issue on the parking, and we've been working on this. I've been, communicating with the other stuff. Our city stuff, and I will give you example on this. Is look on the Claremont. If you're not familiar with the Claremont, it's similar to us. And Claremont is nothing in there. It's old building. The only thing that stays in there was the Wells Fargo and 2 other banks in there. But 7 years ago, they transformed their downtown. And they really, concentrated on that. They got the funding, and then they got the train station in there. We're similar to that. Do you know that we used to have a train station in here in old downtown? But again, I think we have to, this committee should put together our heads together, history of this, our city in here. There's a lot of things that need to be done in our city. I'm proud of the city, that's why I'm here. And then another example of this, you don't need a big shopping center on downtown. You need a small, involved business people. I will give you another example is the Palm Spring. Let me finish on the Claremont. Claremont, they did the refurbish all the buildings in there on the back of the hill and the Indian Hills, on the back of that building. They put a structure, public structures in there. They put a 4-story in there. You won't see it on the Indian Hills and Bonita Avenue in there because people park in there, they walk on downtown. And then the other one is in Palm Spring. Palm Spring, they build their structures in there after they realized that they don't have a parking space in downtown. Probably you guys you've been in that area, and I go there all the time. I volunteer a lot of things in there on golf and also tennis. I spend my time in hotels in there. When I volunteer, and I love what they did on the Palm Spring. You could park on the back of the Lulu's and on the front of Kaiser Lodge in there restaurant, and people park on that structure, and they could accommodate up to 300 cars in there for 3-story on that. So I think we have to not open our wallets or something. They got it up from grants, and, to fund that because of the necessity within the city. So that's the two example I could give you Monrovia and I've been there. I mean, I've seen their how they put together a downtown in there. I think our downtown is so potential. We have to do it now than 15 years from now or 20 years from now. No, let's do it now. I mean, plan it well. I mean, let's plan it. I mean, Christina's, I salute you. I mean, your staff, Kyle, Todd, you put together a good plan. I mean, it's a matter of digesting it, and let's work together on this. And then, I think within a few, not months, few years, we will see the result in this. I think, public structure parking would be the answers on that. I mean, 6th Street and the Beaumont Avenue, to do a center parking in there, and then diagonal parking. That would be great. I know there will be a lot of issues in there because from freeway up to Oak Glen, they just pass through to us. They don't stop. They don't stop. I mean, I'm on the street every day on that. It broke my heart every time I see that. I mean, if we could, do it one at a time from 5th Street to 8th Street, and then jump into, up to 12th Street, that would be great. Let's do it by phase, and then let's put a subcommittee on this, and then concentrate on that. That would be good. Sorry, guys. I mean, I talk too much, so
No,
I'll let
good
you go.
information.
So,
Good information.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Any other comments from committee members? Any other comments?
I just have one question.
Yes.
Do we have to be parallel with Banning? Or do we know what Banning is doing as far as their downtown goes? Or can we have our own separate, I mean, I know we're gonna have our own separate downtown area, but do we, is ours going to be in a collaboration with Banning or separate, totally separate?
So from a staff standpoint, I'd say that would be at the discretion of the city council if they chose to engage, or if they directed staff to engage into some sort of collaborative effort for consistency between the east end of Beaumont and the west end of Banning. But as it stands right now, I'm not aware of Banning's downtown plans. I think their focus is on some different areas of town. So, the city of Beaumont has had attempts at a downtown area plan numerous times over, a decade or two. And so we've decided to proceed with our downtown area plan and seeking funding and opportunity to make that happen.
Yeah, and
Great.
it'd be hard because the city of Banning put in a sizable investment in their downtown, and we've identified where our core downtown area will likely be, and they're not necessarily close to each other. They're fairly far in terms of mileage. So if they were right next to each other, I could see the possibility. But I mean, as Christina said, it is ultimately up to city council on setting the vision for that area and where they'd like to see it. So we'll go along with whatever they come up with.
Thank you.
Real quick, we don't have to go too far. If you look at Yucaipa, they did all their downtown there, and I had suggested a couple of stuff when I was running for city council in 2008, that to draw the people there, and they spruced it up, and they have their street fairs, and then they added the entertainment center there, the performing arts. And I was concerned about the parking situation there, but they've gotten through it. But it's very quaint there, I wasn't a big fan of the roundabouts, though, because I think that it wasn't big enough for the roundabouts. But that was a big deal because they're far from the freeway to be able to draw people up into the old town. But I think we have a better chance here. We're closer to the freeway. And I agree with what Ray was saying. People just drive all the way through and go up to Oak Glen. There's nothing to stop here, nothing to see. So it's unfortunate.
Councilmember Santos' idea of the Go Human campaign with SCAG is excellent. And now that our general plan is in place and we have an idea of what we would like that downtown to look at, staff will be submitting a grant for that in the next Go Human cycle. And basically what that does is they take the concept that the city has adopted for a certain area. In our case, it would be, say, 6th Street from Beaumont Avenue to Palm, right? And they would take that concept of the median parking area and, some bike lanes and things like that, and they essentially construct it, but, out of more temporary materials per se. And so it gives the community and council and staff an idea to see if the concept is really going to work. Is it really going to traffic calm? Or is it going to attract people to the downtown? Are people going to respond well to it? And if we look at this sort of temporary construction and idea of what our concept would look at laid out in real life, that gives us the idea of, oh, wait, this is great. We can construct this and this is how it would function. Or maybe we need to tweak it a little here, tweak it a little there to make it work better for the businesses or make it work better for the citizens or something like that. And it also sets us up to have a demonstrated project where we can say, hey, we know this is going to work. Now we can seek funding to help offset the cost of actually putting it in on a permanent basis.
Can I put something in there since you mentioned SCAG? I'm the regional counsel. I represent 5 cities on this. So anyway, on the SCAG, on the Palm Desert, they just completed their Pablo Avenue right there on the community college. On that, and what they did is used to be a Thursday market night in there too. Now they do it on a Saturday. And what they did is the SCAG fund that on the Go Human, and the Palm Desert was so happy about it, and because they got the funding and everything, and whoever visited the produce night and then market night, they have a wide variety in there. Instead of not only walking, they could go biking, they could go scooters in there and everything. And then they have the electric parking in there and everything. So, and that was, part of it funded by the SCAG. Thank you for bringing out that. And I know we could do it here. And that will be a few years from now. I'm not talking about a year or two. We could do it right away. Thank you, Christina, for sharing that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Fantastic. Any other remarks before we move on to reports? Hearing none, are there any reports from any of our committee members? Any reports from committee members? Any reports from committee members? Hearing none at this time, we will discuss any possible topics for future agendas. Of the items that are listed, are there any of these that you'd like to see on future agendas?
Chairperson,
Santos.
I would like to back a little bit. I would like to Bob Moran. I think he's gone. I like to thank him. They got Kyle. I could share this to him. I attended their Riverside business website. Webinar. And I think the title of this is the exporting, make business to Japan, China, and Vietnam. And they did excellent presentation on that. I'm familiar with this back in the 70s, 80s. I'm old, so I like to hear what they're bringing here in the Inland Empire. I'm so impressed on that. They are open for us. I think this committee should explore that. I think, Bob Moran, could do a presentation on that, the exporting on that, because that's a big, industry that I think Beaumont will be open for that. And when I say that, there will be a lot of revenue coming in the city. You know, not only on the Asian. I'm talking about. I did business with UK and in Italy during that time. It's nice to deal with those countries outside our country. So I think it would be nice to if Bob Moran could do a presentation, a small presentation to us about exporting. And as I said, Mr. Hurtado, Jaime Hurtado, did the presentation on that. That was excellent. I wish if Bob could present it to us, that'll be wonderful. That's all I need to share with you on that.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah,
Duly
Councilmember
noted, and
Santos,
Mr.
I'll reach out to Rob in the Office of Foreign Trade from Riverside County and
Yeah.
see who's willing and able to provide an update to us at a future meeting.
Thank you,
Fantastic.
Kyle. That's Rob. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warsinski, and thank you, Councilmember. Are there any other discussions with regard to topics for future agendas? We have the one for exporting presentation, that request. Any other topics for future agendas? Hearing none, then at this time, we will move on to the topic of adjournment. I don't believe we have to ask for a vote, so with that in mind, I don't think anybody will object. At 5:26, we will adjourn the Beaumont Economic Development Committee meeting. And everyone have a fantastic and safe evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great meeting.
Thank you.
This was probably one of the better ones.